All right, so good morning, David. I'm Jason, Ken, and Zenon, and we're here to present to you Salt Spring Island report. Here's just a quick look at our agenda of what we're going to present today. Quick intro, secondary research destination audit of the Salt Spring, SWOT and pest analysis, Canadian market overview, competitors analysis, intercept survey, target market, following recommendations, and then contingency plan and conclusion.
So our introduction of Salt Spring Island, their current situation. So during the busy season, they're actually surpassing the carrying capacity. So they can't hold any more visitors during the weekends. And in terms of the visitor information center, in 2013, 33,000 people visited the physical location, with July and August being the strongest months and January and December being the weakest months. So we're here to determine a niche market for Salt Spring Island because there's a lack of awareness and minimal advertising. So by using this niche market, we can generate enough interest for the off-season. So here's our agenda for the secondary research. So Vancouver Island tourism, sport, romantic, experiential adventure, LGBT, health and wellness, adventure tourism. So starting off with the Vancouver Island tourism, so it's on the west coast. It's a large, sporadically populated area. They've received 3.7 million overnight visitors in 2010, and there's been 1.4 billion in spending during that year. So it represents 22% of the provincial overnight visitors. So in comparison to the rest of BC, they do have fourth of the visitation, and majority of them come from BC, and then the rest come from Washington. So here are the behaviorals of domestic and Americans. So domestic travelers, they travel 3.3 days during their trip to Vancouver Island, spend around $132, and Americans spend 30.5 days and spend a bit more, $282 per night. And as you can see, Americans, they do spend more, but there's less of them traveling to Vancouver Island. And the type of accommodations they go to are friends and family, so it's not really hotels, inns, or vacation rentals. It's more of visiting a family and staying there for free. And here's familiarity with the Vancouver Island. So Gulf Islands, only 9% overall know about the Gulf Islands, and then Lower Mainland, only 11% are very familiar with the Gulf Islands. And then here with Washington, Western Washington, only 10% are very familiar, and 6% are very familiar in Eastern Washington.
And so these stats, are they from?
These are from Vancouver Island tourism.
Okay, cool.
So with the somewhat familiar, these people don't actually know what's offered. They only know the actual destination. So here, people are likely to travel 3 to 5 nights to Vancouver Island, and they're called mini vacations. And that's 42% of them traveling. Then next is 1 to 2 nights, and they are the getaway trips. And then in terms of the different types of trips, they travel mostly during the summer, as you can see. And then here are the top 3 activities at Vancouver Island: sightseeing, shopping, visiting national parks, and then here are some of the bottom activities. So biking and participating in water sports. Those aren't as popular at Vancouver Island. So sports tourism. So it's just hosting an event at the location or destination. It brings over family, friends, and teammates, and even fans. So it's generated 3.6 billion in 2010. And with the domestic
Is that a Canadian stat?
Yeah, it's Canadian. So in terms of domestic sports traveler, it's had a major contribution. So it's traveling within a certain distance, not too far off from where you live. So there's been an annual growth of 7.2%. It's outgrown other tourism sectors. And romantic tourism. So there's destination wedding, and then there's the honeymoon market. So they travel elsewhere for their weddings, and it's generated 16 billion worldwide. There's an average of 48 guests, as you can see. They spend $400, so that's quite a bit as a group. And then majority of them are financially secure, so they have a lot of money to spend on these types of weddings. And then the honeymoon market, it's generated 12 billion worldwide, and their average spending is 4,500. That's between the two couples. And then majority of them travel internationally. That's 63%. Another 37% travel domestically. So experiential tourism. So tourists learn through experience, and they're more personalized. So they're more like FIT travelers. The market's grown 65% from 2009 to 2013. And the adventure tourism. So average expenditure is $947. That's equipment, accessories, apparel. And they go on Facebook, YouTube, Google. And the destination that they visit are based on past experience. So wherever they felt was best for this type of adventure, they'll come back to it. So LGBT tourism, it's grown in popularity. It's more widely accepted around the world. Currently, Salt Spring Island does have a small community there. Their spending habits differ. So gay couples and lesbian couples, they spend a bit more, a bit less. So it would be gay couples spending more. And then traveling patterns differ from the different groups in this type of sector. So health and wellness tourism. So it's spa relaxation, body rejuvenation. They like doing physical activities, and at the same time, they like the pampering aspect. They perceive it as a getaway destination, and the overall market has increased 16%. And in Salt Spring Island, they currently do have spas and accommodations that can cater to this. So in terms of destination audit, this
Okay, before you flip onto there, so why did you choose those niches to research?
It's more based on what we noticed that they offered when we first went to Salt Spring Island. So when we did our fam trip 2 months back, we noticed some different activities, and through research we're like, okay, maybe we should go research these markets. So destination audit. So it's the comparative advantage. Comparative advantage of the actual destination would be the different resources such as attractions, accommodation, transportation that the destination offers. And from that, in the future, they can use it for future marketing plans and promotions, such as like bundling packages with the different types of accommodation, transportation, and activities. So in February, there's the Maple Syrup Day. It's almost like the East Coast version of maple syrup in Quebec, but it's a different type of maple. It's the big leaf maple. It's less sweeter than the maple used in Quebec. They do similar things, so they freeze the maple syrup and then you can eat it almost like candy. So in April, there's this SSI Blossom Festival. It's celebrating the cherry blossom blooming, and it's more Japanese themed event. And then there's a Taste of Salt Spring that happens during that same weekend where people can try different food offerings at the island. And then here the Saturday market begins. And then there's the SSI sailing club race. It's around Salt Spring Island, and it invites a lot of people from the Lower Mainland and across Canada to participate in this event. Each boat, there's about 10 or more people. And then they bring friends and families over, which is a really big event. Then there's the Saturday market again and the art craft. So that just features different art that's done in the island in a certain location. July, there's a Canada Day celebration, Show and Shine Classic Car Show, and the Lavender Festival. And then August, there's a Full 4 Day Festival, Firefly Lantern. And then here we go back to the off season, the Pride weekend, that's Gay Pride. So it's almost like the parade in Vancouver, but smaller scale. And there's a fall fair. It features different food that's grown during the summer and upcoming winter and fall season. And then Sip and Savor, that's where they'll feature those different crops that are harvestable at that time. And there's an Apple Festival. It's one of the big events there during September. They feature around 300 plus apple varieties. Salt Spring is actually known to be one of the first areas in BC to grow apples. So October, there's a harvest grape stomp and the Oyster Fest. So it's almost like what you'd see in Europe where people use their feet to stomp on the grapes. And the types of wine are much different than what you'd see in Okanagan. And then Oyster Fest just features different oysters in the Vancouver Island region. So Wintercraft at Mahan Hall, so it's just the market but during the winter, featuring different types of art and artisans. And then Christmas on Salt Spring, it's almost like the Christmas market in Vancouver and Toronto, but really small scale. They also feature hot apple cider and that kind of stuff. So in terms of transportation within and coming to the island, there's the BC ferries. We've noticed that the price is really high to get there in terms of bringing a vehicle. But in terms of going there without a vehicle, it's pretty reasonable. There's a public bus service that travels all around Salt Spring from one end to the other end, and actually connected to both of the ferry terminals, so it's easy to access. There's an SSI car rental, which is really expensive, and so is a Silver Shadow taxi. Both are pretty much monopolies at the island. And then there's the Gulf Island water taxi, so it's easy to travel from one of the Gulf Islands to the other through this service. Then there's the seaplanes. There's four actual big ones. There's Salt Spring Air, which is from the island. Harbor Ltd, which is Vancouver-based. Seaplanes, which is from Richmond, and then Kenmore Airs, which is Washington. The problem with some of these planes is you have to actually transfer from different Gulf Islands before you get to Salt Spring because it's too costly to just go straight there. And then accommodations. So we've looked at TripAdvisor at the different accommodations, such as hotels, inns, and bed and breakfasts. Majority of them that do stay and review it are couples, and then next would be families, but it's not as big as the couples market. So Salt Spring Inn is one of the highest rated, and then Hastings House is the next highest rated. So attractions, there's different attractions located at Salt Spring Island. Here are the big assets: the Gary Oaks Vineyard, SSI Winery, the SSI Golf Club, Salt Spring Cheese, so that's where they feature the goat cheese. Gulf Island Brewery, that's actually their own local brewing company, and then the Salt Spring Apple Company. So in terms of activities, most of them are summer based. There's cycling, kayaking, diving, boating, hang gliding, hiking, wine tasting, and wall climbing. In terms of extreme sports, they actually have hang gliding and paragliding, but they're only during the summer as the weather is much more harsher during the winter.
So first of all, the strengths we recognize from Salt Spring is that they do have events year round, but they're not heavily advertised as much as during the summer. And they are well known for their local art and Saturday's farmers market, resulting in the booming summer overcrowding. But then Salt Spring does have enough accommodations to cater to these individuals who do stay overnight, and as such, they can carry that on to the off season and accommodate them as well. And as such, no traffic in the summer. So weaknesses we observed is overcrowding of summer due to the summer market, the market. The off-season lacks exposure, which can be remedied through the summer season, where they can advertise their later events during the Saturday market. There's also inconsistent brand imaging within Salt Spring itself. Many citizens of Salt Spring, when asked what their brand image is or like what they think of Salt Spring, gives answers that differ from an old, really dead area to like, oh, we're like the best, we're known for arts, we have the best art in BC. So it's very inconsistent between citizens, and of course this would translate to other residents of island as well. And then as such, there is slow business during winter because of the lack of exposure of events and whatnot. So opportunities, commercial development. The fire hall in Ganges, they're planning to move or close down the fire hall. So the fire hall is the center point of Ganges, which is a city in Salt Spring. It's basically the downtown core. So they could use that area and create like a focal point for artisans, or maybe even create like a mini plaza for people to gather and just take a look around at what Salt Spring has to offer. So the events during the off season, they do have the events. They can just further advertise them during the peak season in the Saturdays market. Be like, oh, we have the following events during like September till February. Come check us out. So, and as such, they do have the necessary resources to provide other means of tourism that cater to sports tourism, health and wellness, LGBT, and as such. And by like just improving what they currently have, they can probably bring them in during the off season and just create more business. And they were once well known as a romantic tourism destination, and why not bring that back? Since they were once well known, they could revamp that and just create it again. Some threats that we have observed is that competitors such as Topina and Sampon have a lot more to offer and have marketed themselves favorably during the off season, such as Topina with the storm watching, and Sampon as basically another new American Salt Spring, but with more winter activities, well known with like the winter markets and whatnot. Then as a result of that, local business owners and foreign business owners are really reluctant to invest in Salt Springs, resulting in slow economic growth, and of course there are always cheap alternatives for people instead of going to Salt Spring. So pests. Some political issues that we observed are foreign initiatives between Canada and the United States. This could hinder American travelers and visitors because of stricter border controls, resulting in Americans choosing to go to San Juan instead of coming to Salt Spring Island. And then provincial sales tax, which is applicable to all sales of goods and services, and that would create a increase in price for people unaware of this, and might cause an issue from further visitation from thereon. Some economic factors, BC American economy from the recent downturn has been on the rise, and it's seen a good change in term events, and they're willing to spend more and as such. But then inflation, of course, happens, and people are still, their income relatable to inflation is an issue with that, and then people will cause them to try to look for the best deal and like best bang for the buck in a way. And household expenditure has seen an increase within the Canadian market. People are spending more as a household. And then social factors are that there is a bigger demand from the baby boomers and international market for destination travel, and they want more areas that they can travel to. And then, of course, other people from like domestic citizens are looking for shorter and less expensive trips, because going to Salt Spring, it's kind of pricey for being such a destination such close to home for lower mainland residents. And microstay is an observed trend that's rising, where people are booking rooms for a day and a half just to like use that as workspace, or like take a mini day off. Some technological factors is that social media is becoming a tool or a means of information, and then the mobile usage is increasing, where people are using their handhelds to access this information and book online. So as a destination, Salt Spring would need to incorporate their website to make it more mobile friendly, make everything easily accessible online. So moving on to Canadian market overview. That's on Jason.
All right. So in terms of our secondary research, we've also done quick research on the overall Canadian market, just to see some of the recent trends and how they'll impact our recommendations for later on. So some of the key findings that we found is that travel opportunities are continuing to increase due to the fact of the overall improvement of the economy. On top of that, there's about 83% of Canadians planning on spending more on their vacation getaways. Having a desired destination and a travel budget is actually one of their crucial for their vacation planning. And lastly, as a whole, as a country, we are ranked 6th as spenders when traveling outside the country. So in terms of BC travelers, here are some of the key facts for that. There has been 8 million overnight trips and 11.1 million same-day trips within BC itself. Domestic travelers are mainly younger adults, with 76% of them traveling in groups. Their average stay or duration is about 3 days, with an average expenditure of $135 daily. And then in terms of domestic travels, we found that there's about 229 million trips in 2010, with 80% of that due from tourism expenditure. Some of the barriers to domestic travels do include poor weather, and then of course too expensive with the economy and all that. And then moving on to international travels, we've also found as a whole, there's about 32 million outbound trips in 2012. Again, as mentioned before, we are ranked 6th in the overall international spendings, which translated over to about $30 billion spent on international travels. And some of their main influencers and motivators for choosing destinations include the beautiful scenery, historical and cultural attractions, and of course the local cuisines at the destination. So in terms of the economy, the tourism sector alone is actually one of BC's top industries, which translated to $6.5 billion in the GDP, and then $13.4 billion in overall revenue. Of course, many opportunities were created from the original 2010 Winter Olympics, which kind of makes Vancouver one of the leading destinations now in Canada alone. So then with that being said, if they come to Vancouver, there could be possibilities of them visiting elsewhere, such as Whistler, Victoria, or Salt Spring. Moving on, Canadian tourism as a whole did grow for about 4.2% in 2012, which translated to $81.9 billion contributed to the economy. Both domestic and international travels have seen increases. which also translated to $66.4 billion for domestic demand and $15.5 billion for international demand. And then again, some of their barriers for travel is again affordability. We've also done a quick research on some of the American travelers due to the fact they are very close to us. And it's found that 38% of the people that travel to BC are from Washington. With that being said, about half of them are 55 and older. 47% of them travel in pairs, while 40% of them travel in groups. And of course, the majority of the travels do happen between the months of June and September. In terms of their spending habits, they do spend on average roughly $300 daily. And then, of course, summer is their most preferred months traveling to BC. And then, with the improving American economy, we are expecting a quick tourism spike from the American travelers in the next coming years. So, in terms of our competitor analysis, we picked these two competitors, Tofino and San Juan, due to the fact they are close similarity to Salt Spring itself. First off, for Tofino, it is located on the west coast of Vancouver Island. They do have different activities throughout the year. For example, their popular summer activities and then their storm watching activity in the winter. They do have numerous accommodations to accommodate during off season and peak season. And of course, they're also known for the major transformation from the last few years from being a quiet place to more of a popular destination. In terms of San Juan, it's located between Washington and Vancouver, so it's actually in the States. But then with that being said, it has easy access from both locations. They're also known for 250 days of summer. And of course, just like Tofino, they do have a lot of attractions and activities throughout the year. So in terms of attractions, this is the list of their popular activities for the summer. Includes whale watching, surfing, and storm watching, just to name a few for Tofino. Based on the list, it's pretty obvious that these activities are in the summer itself. In terms of San Juan, the list also provides horsebacking, sculpture park, and wildlife watching. Again, which is all mainly on the summer, but they do have several activities in the winter also. In terms of transportation, getting to Tofino includes smaller jets from YVR in Seattle itself, and also BC ferries. And then in terms of traveling within Tofino, they do have bus shuttles and car rentals. For San Juan, getting to San Juan also includes their ferries from Washington and the Friday Harbor. They do also have their own ferry known as the Northwest Sky Ferry, and also their small little aviation company, West Wind. And then to again transport around San Juan Island, they have rental cars, transit, and taxi. So I'll just pass over to Ken for a quick intercept.
So our first intercept survey we did in the Lower Mainland, Richmond, Vancouver, and Coquitlam. So majority of them said they were aware of SSI, but none of them were willing to visit. That is a problem for us.
How many intercepts did you do?
We actually did 5 each, so there's 15 in total.
Okay.
And then the people that did say they traveled, which was like a few, they said that they had a positive experience. And then most of them that did go there were visiting families. Again, they already have that perception. And here, when we asked what their perception is of Salt Spring, they said families and seniors. And then there's a lack of awareness of the other Gulf Islands as well. And then in Salt Spring in the city, we went to their Salt Spring in the City event. And at that event, we surveyed 15 people who were exiting the event randomly. And what we found out was that most of the people that traveled there traveled within 2 to 20 years. So it's been a while back since they traveled. It's not consistent like every other year or every year. And then the most visited time was during the summer season. Most of them said it was a quiet, relaxing place. Again, they said it was catered to an older crowd and family. And then majority of them said it's a great place for nature exploration. In terms of vendors, we asked 5 different people from different industries: transportation, accommodation, food and beverage, and there's a few others. They said that the tourism season shrunk. So it used to be several months, and now it's only 6 weeks. The ferry prices are too high, as they all mentioned. Business activity on the island is much slower than before. They believe in strengthening in terms of marketing and more events. They believe in strengthening off-island events like the Salt Spring in the City, as that gains more awareness off the island. It's much easier to market that way for them. And from that, they show the different arts and artisans that are featured on the island. And what they also mentioned was there was unwillingness for the CRD and Islands Trust to support business growth. So there's an issue with collaboration within the island, as everyone has different opinions on what kind of tourism they want to bring in and which businesses to support.
So moving on to target market, from all this research we've been conducted, we decided to target the romantic tourism market. And the reason for this is that majority of the market of people within this market, they do travel in pairs or like in small groups, and they're more middle age and they're looking for weekend getaways. So we segmented this market into 5 different segments within the Lower Mainland and like domestic travel. Into Canadian culture explorers, authentic experiencers, no hassle travelers, rejuvenators, and gentle explorers. So for Canadian culture explorers, majority of them are middle age. They look for interactive activities and they like to have control over their activities and when they plan a trip, they like to have control and choose what they want to do and when they do it and how they do it. And they're also willing to spend the extra dollar to get what they want. Authentic experiences are the seniors of this group. When they travel, they're looking for history and local attractions that they can incorporate into their daily lives. And as such, similar to culture explorers, they like to have control over their travels and choose what they want to do. No hassle travelers, they're middle age, they enjoy structured travel, all inclusive trips, and tend to travel in groups. So package tour pack groups or packages would be best for this segment. And then rejuvenators are more younger to middle age. When they do travel, they're looking to unwind, take it easy. And when they do go to visit a destination, they want to create memories of the destination. So perhaps to even come back and create further memories of that place. And as such, similar to culture explorers, they're willing to spend the extra dollar to get what they want. Gentle explorers are middle age and they tend to travel in families, so a little bigger groups, but they do also travel in with pairs, like such as couples. They value structured travel. They're very risk averse, so they like to get the best bang for the buck. So again, maybe a group tour package would be best for this market. So from that, the recommendations we have we gathered through the target market is to how we can target the market, how we can improve our current offerings, social media improvements, human capital. So to target this market, we create connections with Tourism BC, Tourism Van, Tourism Victoria, for them to feature Salt Spring Island as an add-on and as a destination for people who visit these places, for the trip to extend their trip further a couple days, maybe 1 or 2 days. So by that, they can feature our events of the off season and how the local businesses are on their website. So create this partnership and how just increase the tourism market. So bundling options as such is just to work with BC Ferries to maybe create an easier way of accessing Salt Spring Island from Victoria. Because right now, to get to Salt Spring, you need to go to Victoria. But let's say you're going from Vancouver to Wasson. You go to Victoria first. Then from there, you need to wait for another ferry, which is usually half an hour to even an hour. And before you can take a smaller ferry to Salt Spring Island. I guess they could try to cut back this time, maybe make it less of a wait between ferries. Or even, because right now, to get the ticket, when you do get a ticket from Tsawwassen to Victoria, then to Salt Spring, you need to go to each ticket booth again and walk all the way, which is a 10-minute walk. They could just sell a ticket at the Tsawwassen Bay and have that ticket just work for all transfers and without having this extra walk. So revamping the website and online initiatives. As our target market, there are an older demographic, most middle-aged. Creating easy to navigate website is probably a key factor in just reducing bounce rate and just creating more, generating more people clicking on the website and looking for information and then further booking. So to improve our current offerings, the current products that are offered on Salt Spring cater to the romantic tourism market. They're looking for luxury, spa, pampering, and whatnot. But then bundling packages as such, we can bundle packages to like all-inclusive transportation, some activities that you can choose to do. So this would cover like two segments of the 5. Then from there on, we can make this package that offers like variety of activities, and the individual can pick and choose and create their own tour and how they want to do it. This would also cater This would allow Salt Spring Island to reach out to the other three segments who like to choose how they travel, and as such, the price would be all inclusive, so people don't have to worry about going there and paying extra for more if they need to. And then, of course, the artistic performances, local business collaborations. As mentioned before, commercial development in Ganges in the fire hall, they could make that a focal point for artists to showcase their arts. So this becomes like an area for people to come and just check out everything. Because right now, all the artists, they have studios spread across Salt Spring. This would create just an area for everyone to go visit. And if they're interested in these arts, they can further visit the studio to like look at the artists more pieces from the artists.
That's cool. In
Yeah.
Penticton, they have the Wine Education Center in downtown Penticton. So basically, all the wineries are represented. They have the products. So if you like that particular wine, they'll do a tasting.
So it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. They'll give you a map on how to go to Painted Rock or whatever the winery is. So
Yeah, that was basically the idea behind this. Then local business collaborations during the off season. There's an issue with this because right now in the winter, a lot of residents who are also local business owners, they tend to leave the island because they believe it's cold and then not many people come. So the farms and the wineries, they close and they head out. So for people who do come and they come visit, they're like driving down the road and they're like, oh, let's check out this farm, but then it's closed. And then as they keep driving along, like everything's closed until they hit Ganges, which is downtown core. Even then, everything closes at around like 4 to 5. So it kind of kills the mood of traveling there. So to do this, we could collaborate with local business owners and try to create like an atmosphere where they're open during the weekends. And on the website, we can feature them and be like, okay, today all businesses are open. They're open from a certain time. So when people do come, it wouldn't be just driving down closed shops and farms and whatnot. Of course, because it's off season, they sort of staffing issues. They don't have to staff as much. Maybe during the summer season where they need 4 to 5, they could have like just the business owner, or like they could hire like a friend or family, and just to like watch over and just guide people around. So for social media, I'll pass it back to Ken.
In terms of social media, currently with the other competitors, they're much more active. It does target more younger demographic, but since the demographic at Salt Spring is much older, and this will attract more of the younger demographic. So by featuring local businesses through social media, like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, which they currently have, they'll actually be able to gain more awareness for their products and offerings, such as the arts that are featured at the island, the different food, and the different events and activities. They also can create an overall theme of romantic destination in those social media outlets by showing the different activities in terms of romantic tourism. It'll gain awareness and encourage and entice visitors to come. For like Tofino, they have different social media platforms where they use it to advertise the storm season and surfing, which we really don't have at Salt Spring. So not many people know about the different offerings. So in terms of media relationship partners, partnering with Tourism Victoria, Vancouver, and Tourism Vancouver Island, as Zena already mentioned, that could help increase awareness by featuring these different romantic packages on their website. It'll be much easier for a visitor from let's say somewhere in BC to come to Salt Spring. We also said North American Visiting Journalist Program, so they should create a program similar to that. If you don't already know, that one encourages journalists and other influencers to come to North America, write about the destination, review the different offerings, accommodations. That way, more people know about the destination and are encouraged to visit the place. So for Salt Spring, they could do the same thing. Invite people in Lower Mainland, do a fam trip for the journalists, different travel experts, bloggers, and other industry folks, so that they could come to the island, see what's there to offer during the off-season event or off-season time and write a review so that other people can read about it. In terms of human capital, like I said, the demographic is much older there. To bring in more younger people, we thought of partnering with post-secondary institutes that focuses on tourism, where they can do internship, co-ops, practicums. That way, younger people do come to the island and get their credits there. We noticed this in a different business model with a sailing company where they partnered with like some Victoria school where they do nature slash tourism activities, and it was worth credits. So from that, we used it for the destination. In terms of the database, by increasing their database through surveys with all the businesses, like one survey where it asked about what they did, what they liked, the types of activities they participated in, how much they spent, how many days they stayed. They can find out more information for future promotions and marketing plans.
Now, for a contingency plan, should the romantic tourism not perform as well as we expected, we do have a second option for them to recommend. And so, with that being said, we do recommend the health and wellness target market due to the fact that Salt Springs' current offerings do kind of cater to that market with their current small accommodations. And of course, looking at the physical structures, they do have certain aspects that can cater well with the health and wellness. For example, their biking routes, their hiking, and their lakes. In terms of implementation, they could take smaller steps, such as their local artists and businesses collaborations, revamping their websites. So smaller steps rather than taking bigger steps with the romantic tourism. And lastly, they could just probably increase their social media presence within their demographic just to raise overall awareness for Salt Spring Island. And that concludes our presentation for the Salt Spring Report. Thank you for listening, and we're open to the floor for any questions or comments.
Cool. Okay, good. Kill the recording.